Former President Trump's legal calendar is not happening in a vacuum. It is happening in the middle of a razor-thin presidential campaign. With me to talk about that, CNN's Jeff Zeleny, Laura Coates, and Gloria Borger. Hi. Hi again. Jeff, I want you to talk about something that I heard you talking about this morning. I'll give a little peek behind the curtain to us sort of internally, which I thought was such interesting reporting about the way that the Biden campaign is viewing everything that's happening with Trump on the legal front.
Look, I mean, not that long ago, there was kind of an assumption that the former president either might have some type of a judgment by the time voting judgment day comes in November. That is very much an open question now. I would say the betting odds are that there may be no conclusion to any of these cases. But as far as thinking inside the Biden sort of broader world is, they are not planning on a conviction. They are not sort of focusing on that. It's out of their control, and they have enough challenges to worry about on their own, trying to get people to sort of embrace Joe Biden as opposed to rejecting Donald Trump. But they are no longer thinking that any of these cases in Georgia or here might be resolved. The Georgia case, though, is so interesting because I was talking to an advisor who really was kind of talking this out, not sure how it plays because it's a local story. And Georgia is a battleground state. We saw last Saturday, Joe Biden and Donald Trump were campaigning hours apart, miles apart. We don't know how this plays. This gets so much local coverage in Georgia. It could sort of rally support for Donald Trump or not. But that is one wild card here that was sort of not on anyone's bingo card 4 years ago. When Georgia became a surprisingly Democratic win for Biden, they weren't necessarily expecting that either. But it's not a must win for Biden, but boy, they sure would like it. It's easy for you to, it's harder for him to get to 270 without Georgia.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. The reason why this is a story, because Trump really needed Georgia, is potentially playing.
It's a hall of mirrors.
It's a hall of mirrors.
Right. It just sort of undermines the whole legal system. And, that's what Donald Trump has been trying to do. And his whole spiel is the legal system is rigged. It's rigged against me. And look at what happened in Georgia with Fani Willis. And so you can't trust the legal system because she's still going to be prosecuting my case. And she shouldn't be. She doesn't deserve to be there. So in the state of Georgia, as you point out, even though it's a big local story, she's an elected official, the judge is elected. It's going to have some legs in the state.
I mean, 2 points, really. On the one hand, Georgia is unique because these were Republicans who fought back against Donald Trump. Brad Raffensperger, Brian Kemp. This was the state where...
But Laura, they're rhinos.
That's right, they're rhinos. I keep forgetting. Once they've gone against, they can no longer be a part of the party.
That was sarcasm.
So, it was clear sarcasm.
Get that, okay.
But that was what makes it unique about Georgia. And also on Tuesday, I mean, even Nikki Haley is no longer in the race. She was holding her own against Donald Trump in Fulton County, in DeKalb County, in the Georgia suburbs as well. So it's maybe a little bit telling. But finally, remember, Donald Trump's goal is delay, but his real goal was it's all to go away. That has not happened in Mar-a-Lago. The judge did not dismiss the case, even although he wanted to talk about the issues of an ambiguous, he says, Espionage Act. He wants the Fani Willis case to go away. If she had been disqualified, there was no chance this case is going to go to trial this year, let alone maybe even at all. And so delay is one thing, but he doesn't want to kick the can down the road. He wants the road to be obliterated.
Well, he doesn't want to just delay. He wants to destroy.
Yes.
And destroy means destroy people's faith in institutions. And one of those, of course, is the judicial system.
Well, that's all true. But the other major factor here, he definitely wants to, what did you say? Don't kick the can down the road?
Yep.
Burn the road or something?
He wants to destroy the road.
Destroy the road.
Obliterate the road.
That was good. It was such a good quote that I screwed it out 5 seconds later.
Moment.
But Jeff, a big part of, if you kind of go back in time, in him announcing at the time that he did in 2022, and the way that he has approached his political campaign and his legal campaign simultaneously, is all about him personally. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't want to be president, but a big part of why he wanted to be president and wanted to declare his candidacy early on was to blur the lines and to make it harder for him personally to be successfully prosecuted because, I'm not just a former president, I am a candidate for president in the future.
Without a doubt. I mean, this is someone who has, complete name ID. He could have jumped in at the last moment, the night before the Iowa caucuses, and he could have still won. But the reality is he jumped in first. He wanted to be a candidate for president, so he could say that this was all part of the witch hunt, all part of election fraud, trying to block him from this. Such a good point, Laura, that you made, that Republicans in Georgia stood up to him. It's a little unclear. Some of those same Republicans will put their jerseys on and vote for Donald Trump in November, but some may not. I mean, so this is why it's such an interesting laboratory in Georgia. This case, if it goes to trial, will be on television every day. It's the only one that will. That is different in this as well. And it's also one, should he become president, that he cannot do anything about, because it's a state case. So this is the first ruling, really a string of some pretty positive rulings for the former president from all courts. This is the first one that was not in his favor, and it's a big deal.
He's been pretty lucky, though, so far.
Very lucky.
Gloria, I want you to weigh in on this, but you talk to voters all the time. You're out on the road constantly. How much are they tuned in to all things Trump legal?
It's a blur. All these cases run together and blur together. The Georgia is an exception. I haven't been down to Georgia for a few weeks to talk to voters there. I think that could be different because it's happening there. But I was in Michigan and Wisconsin most recently, and voters it just all runs together. What are the cases, what are not? If you don't like Trump, obviously, you're supportive of this. If you do, you think it's, he's being ganged up on.
And then you have, as you come in, I want you to listen to Jamie Raskin. He was talking to Manu earlier this week. He, on the one hand, said, look, like when some of the charges were dropped in Georgia, like that's the way it is. And he's making the argument that if you're going to respect the judicial system, then you have to go all in on that. Let's listen.
Or a walking crime wave like Donald Trump, you can trample every criminal, civil, disciplinary, ethical boundary you want, and then you know that it's going to take time for the justice system to catch up with you. But that's in the nature of justice system based on due process. But we've got to stick by the rule of law. It's all we've got.
Well, right. You do have to stick by the rule of law, and sometimes it's on your side and sometimes it isn't. And I think in these 4 cases, we might not hear any of them before the election. It has worked in Donald Trump's favor because he wants to delay and destroy and, do whatever. And now, in D.C., you're waiting for a Supreme Court ruling, and there's nothing you can do to skip over that. You have to wait. And our polls and other people's polls show that the American public does want to get a resolution on at least one of these cases before they vote.
Yeah.
They want to know if he's going to be convicted of any of these things, and it looks like they may not know.
By the way, being a Teflon Don is not the best asset. You're talking about cases in multiple juries, because you could have the cumulative effect of jurors being aggravated that this person keeps getting away with it, and they may take and say to themselves, "Well, not on my watch."
What
And
an
so his
interesting
defense
point.
has to guard against that.
Yeah, as somebody who has prosecuted cases, maybe you've had that experience.